Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. One of his advocacy empowering leaders, transforming organizations, none other than Mr. Michael Wright. Welcome, Mr. Michael, on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
So my name is Michael Wright. I did not plan on ever being a leader. It kind of happened over a long period of time with a couple key events, maybe four or five, six of them that shaped the type of leader that I am today. I've written books about it in a memoir form. We can maybe get into those a little bit later. But
Mhm.
I try to help leaders understand that, the past person you used to be can coexist with who you are now, and trying to figure out what motivates them to be a good leader or what motivates them to be a leader to begin with.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Mr. Michael, thank you. So, is this your latest book, Mr. Michael? Rebuilding Differently When Leadership Finds You?
And it is. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of a different book. And the premise of it is it deals with different key aspects or key events in my life that caused me to rebuild. I talk
Mm-hmm.
about my, my plan after graduating high school was to go into the army and stay 30 years there. That was my plan. In 1995, I was in a car accident that prevented me from being on active duty. So I had to rethink what I was going to do. My entire plan, my entire future, as I planned it, did not exist. It could not exist anymore. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I got married. So now I'm rebuilding a life with someone I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, get divorced. Now I have to build again. Um, Fast forward to 2015, I had my own business, and when you have, I don't want to use the term servant leadership. I think that gets overused too much, but I have always tried to give back to other people my experience, my education, my expertise, and having the willingness to help people in some weird way, it made me an easy target. I overlook patterns, I overlook behaviors, just to help people out. And so when those relationships crumbled, I had to rebuild again. Recently, and I talk about this in my book, it's kind of an emotional chapter for me. Um, I had to move up to Ohio. The catch was I had to leave my wife in North Carolina because at that point, she was 2 years away from retirement. And it wouldn't have been worth it for her to move up here and give up all that retirement that she built and stuff like that. So I get up here and now I have to rebuild my life, not only rebuild my life here in Ohio separately from her, but still try to build a life together as a husband and wife. It can be challenging sometimes.
Definitely challenging, Mr. Michael. Can you explain the distinction between someone who chases a leadership role and someone who leadership finds?
There are people that I've known that they're always trying to get into a leadership position. Sometimes they're not exactly qualified for it. I don't believe that leadership starts with a title. I believe leadership starts with influence first. And I talk about that in my book. There was a period of time where I was in Oklahoma and I took a summer job as a I was a supervisor for a group of gentlemen that were incarcerated, but they were on a work release program. And at that point, I'm just like, okay, I'll take them to and from the job site. I'll make sure the job gets done. I make sure the deadlines get met, things like that. I did not perceive myself as a leader whatsoever. I was just more of a supervisor, a boss type thing. But during the course of that, I think it was 6 months, they started to open up, share things with me, talk about their future plans, asking me for advice. What do I do when I get out of here? Things like that. And at that point, that was a very pivotal moment for me because for me, it was like these people are coming to me for advice, for my opinion, and just to be friends with, right? And so I noticed over a little bit of time that I could kind of influence their behavior a little bit by how I behave, influence their decisions based off of the very little experience I had then. And through that process, and that's kind of been the course of everything I've gone through. I've never really considered myself to be a leader. Other people have, um, given advice and stuff. But I've never chased a title. It's crazy because I don't even use titles now. I got credentials as long as I arm. I don't even use them. I know people that try to build leadership. And an acquaintance of mine recently published a book, and he's using all these different leadership titles that he has and all these different roles that he has on his book. There's nothing wrong with that. But when I look at that, he's trying to build authority and leadership based off of the titles without a lot of substance to back it up. I do it the other way, or try to do it the other way. I don't even know if that answered your question, but for me, there's a difference. People that are constantly chasing leadership roles, I think they're just doing it for the title, not the responsibility. And I've always said, if you have a title, take the responsibility. You have to have both.
Well said, Mr. Michael. The phrase rebuilding differently suggests that a return to the status quo is not an option. What are essential elements of rebuilding differently versus simply rebuilding?
For me, and I need to clarify something. Sometimes, the phrase rebuilding differently, for me, it was life circumstances was rebuilding the person that not only I was, but who I was going to become. And for me, if I have a business and I have to close it, which I've done, I learn from it what worked, what didn't work. So now when I start another business or help someone rebuild theirs, I'm rebuilding what they had so that the outcome is different, so that the results are different. I don't like to follow the status quo, and I hate the phrase it is what it is. Um, and I use this example all the time. Water is water until you freeze it, then it becomes ice. Then you can boil the ice and it becomes steam. The steam becomes water again. So everything is what it is until it changes. And sometimes what we need to do is rebuild what we have, but change it. If it doesn't work the first time, why would you rebuild the same thing that you had that didn't work?
Well said, Mr. Michael. Your first book, Leading and Standing Alone, dealt with loneliness of leadership. How does the theme of rebuilding differently build upon or evolve from those earlier ideas?
What was the name of the book?
Leading Standing Alone, is it your book?
I don't believe that's mine.
So, if you compare to the first book that you had, what's the big difference of rebuilding differently to, let's say, The Storm or somewhere in the middle
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So
or Still Waking? or the
Still
peace?
walking. Okay, so the series that you're referring to, Still Walking, The Peace, Somewhere in the Middle, Rebuilding Differently, and then The Storm. Um,
Yes.
so Rebuilding Differently is kind of the bridge book between my memoir series and my leadership series. But in the book The Storm, that talks about all these different life events, grief, loss of jobs, injuries, all this stuff that kept building up and building up and building up and building up. And I had this thought and this mentality of, if I keep working through it, if I keep myself busy, if I don't allow myself to grieve, if I appear strong to everybody else, eventually I'm going to be okay. Um, and then in rebuilding differently, I go back to that and basically tell people that in one of the things in the storm I talk about is in April of 2022, my daughter passed away. That October, so October of 2022, my dad passed away. The following May of 2023, my mother-in-law passed away. And I didn't even have time to grieve the loss of my daughter or my father. And now I have to support my wife with her grief. At the same time, I'm running a business. I still had clients to keep up with. I still had deadlines. I still had projects that needed to get finished. And I was completely absorbed in work. And the funny thing is, I was leaving my office one day and I had a flat tire. And as a result of that, I think that was like the tipping point. As odd as that may seem, a flat tire, right? It's really not that big of a deal. But for 3 weeks after that, and this is 2 years later, um, the the gravity of what I went through in 2022 finally hit me. And I didn't have anything to give. I was mentally exhausted. I was spiritually exhausted. I was mentally exhausted, and I just existed. I didn't feel like I had a purpose or anything. Um, that's in rebuilding differently. Somewhere in the middle is my personal journey from the events that happened in the storm, and it's a journey of through resentment, forgiveness, and eventually peace. And then Still Walking describes how I'm still the guy that is struggling with forgiveness, to be honest with you. There's people that have done things to me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to forgive them, and I struggle with that every day. There's the side of me that has doubts. There's the side of me that maybe suffers from imposter syndrome. All of those people is the same person. They're all parts of me. And even though I've gone through all that stuff and has had all these experiences, good, bad, and indifferent, I'm still walking towards that change. I'm still trying to navigate life. I'm still carrying all that stuff. And then the book, The Peace, is when I had this moment. Um, and I don't know, I describe it in the book, but I don't know if I actually capture the beauty of it. We have a small farm in North Carolina. And on that farm, there's a family of hawks, and I think there's four of them that live there. And every morning they roost on the same place. And we have horses. And one morning it was right around sunrise. I'm out on the porch with a cup of coffee, just watching the sun come up, watching the horses graze or whatever they're on. And I just had this overwhelming sense of peace that, you know what? I'm okay. I'm okay with who I am. I'm okay being the guy that hasn't really forgiven people, not haven't forgiven everybody. Um, I'm okay with the guy that all these other books have formed. rebuilding differently, still walking somewhere in the middle. I'm still that guy, but now we all coexist peacefully within me. We don't argue with each other. The guy that experienced, betrayal and stuff like that, he serves as an early warning system for me. But hey, these patterns are starting to show up again. Be a little bit careful. But they don't control who I am. They used to control who I was, and they used to dictate my future. But now the past versions of me, they don't dictate my future version of me anymore. And that's the whole purpose of these memoirs, and that's why I wrote them that way. They can be read separately, but to get the full picture, read the whole series, and it doesn't really matter what order you read them in.
Very well said, Mr. Michael. Your career has taken you from a teacher and coach to a university president, school superintendent. Was there a specific moment when you felt leadership find you rather than seeking it out?
I think it was when other people started calling me a leader. When people are saying, you're the expert in your field, you're the leadership guy. And then when other leaders that I knew within my circle of friends started calling me and asking me for advice, my opinion, and I give it to them, and it works, right? Um, I didn't ask for it. I didn't go seeking it. It was something that happened organically through my original consulting business. It just happened on its own.
Mr. Michael, you've led in both post secondary and K 12 education. How do the principle of rebuilding and resilience differ between those two worlds? And what remains universal?
What remains universal is that when you're dealing with such a diverse age group and such a diverse group of people, they all learn differently. They all respond to different things, different ways. So we have to, as leaders, we have to learn how they learn. We have to adapt to how they learn. Um, and then they each have their own individual needs too. There's a big difference between K through 12 as post-secondary. I've helped people build charter schools, K through 12. They have a different set of needs than what a post-secondary school does. Post-secondary, you need more staff, you need more robust curriculums and things like that.
Mr. Michael, the book implies the crisis and catalyst for being found by leadership. What is the most important quality a leader needs to display in the immediate aftermath of a crisis?
Calmness. I think if a leader can remain calm through a crisis, that has a ripple down effect to the rest of the staff. I'll give you an example of that. I had my boss at one point gave me a little, I think it was during Christmas or something, but on her card, she said, Michael, I'm glad, and I wasn't even a leader, right? She's the leader. I work under her. She says that I'm glad you're on the leadership team. Your calm presence means a lot, not just to me, but the entire organization. It's just staying calm. Don't panic. Don't go into panic mode. You can panic internally, but just stay calm and work through it.
Mm. When an organizations need to be rebuilt differently, where should a leader look first at the systems, the culture, or the people itself?
I think if you're going to rebuild something differently and you're in a leadership position, you have to start with yourself. You have to look within yourself to see if there's things that you can change and things that you can do different. And then you start with the culture, you work with the other leaders and then their teams, or equip them to work with their teams. And then you go down to systems and processes. Sometimes just to rebuild stuff, you just need to put people in the right place.
Mr. Michael, you write about faith and perseverance in your first book. How does leaders' inner life and personal conviction sustain them during the exhausting process of rebuilding?
Well, the military taught me perseverance, right? Like you have a mission, it starts and it's not over till it's over. Mission completed, then that's it. Um, my faith has taught me that even when things are going really, really bad, then there is a bigger purpose and a better outcome. And I talk about that on one of my podcasts, on James 1, actually. Um, but I just think I don't know as a person of faith, right? I don't know how you can have perseverance and not faith and how those two don't interconnect with each other.
Mhm. So, what is the more common mistake you see leaders when they are trying to rebuild after a failure, and how can they avoid it?
From my personal experience and what I've seen, they try to rebuild the same thing. They try to rebuild something that didn't work the first time the exact same way and they don't change anything. If you have an organization that fails and you have to rebuild it, why would you rebuild it the exact same way? Do the exact same thing. You're going to get the same results.
Certainly. So, Mr. Michael, for a leader who's currently in the middle of chaos and knows they need to rebuild differently, what is the first, most concrete step they should take tomorrow morning?
I think tomorrow morning they should wake up and realize that it's a new day and we're only given so many of those. Take a deep breath and just know within themselves that, okay, you have to rebuild something. Doesn't mean you failed. It doesn't mean that you let anybody down unless you're someone like me and you have high standards for yourself. And that it will be okay. That it's okay to rebuild something a little bit different than what it looked like to begin with. And that's growth. That's how an organization is going to grow. That's how a person is going to grow. And just know that it's going to be okay. But you have to take that first step and take it with confidence and be calm about it.
You pay tribute to a family and community in your writing. How has your understanding of community shape how you lead and how you teach others to rebuild?
That's a good question and it can be a tough one. Um, Without the community, regardless of what kind of organization you are, without the community, you don't exist. It's that simple. I've told business owners, I've told church leaders, I've told nonprofit leaders, if you want the community to be involved in what you're doing, you have to be involved in the community. You just have to. Um, but I also look at it and say that regardless if someone has the same beliefs I have, regardless if someone has the same socioeconomic background that I have, that they're still people. And we need to treat them as people first, not not a subset of a subset of a subset. We don't need to dehumanize them. We don't need to exploit them. We don't need to use them for our own gain. We just need to help them and put that first. It's a golden rule, right? You treat others the way you want them to treat you. And it gets frustrating sometimes where I see certain groups of people that are using other groups of people for their own gain and their own recognition, and they're really not helping them to begin with. So
So,
if you want
Miss,
to, if you go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
If you
So,
want to
Mr.
engage,
Mike, so Mr. Michael, now that rebuilding differently is out, what's next for you? Are there more stories to tell for new arenas, or which to apply your leadership's philosophy?
I don't know if there's going to be any more books yet. Um, the piece is the last book in that group. Um, maybe there's something that comes after that, but I have to live it first. And that's one of the things. So if you look at my website, there's two very different, distinct sets of books. There's the operational books, the management books, and then there's the memoir type books. I've lived through those, right? I don't know where this next chapter is taking me. I don't know if there is a follow-up book to the piece or not. That might be the last one. I really don't know, but believe me, Daniel, when I find that out, I figure it out, I'll let you know.
Well, looking forward for that, Mr. Michael. And to wrap up our discussion for today, if you could sit across from your younger self, the one you just starting out as a teacher and coach, and whisper one truth about leadership journey ahead, what would it be?
That it's going to be rough, but it's going to be okay. And then I would say thank
Miss,
you.
yes, thank you. Be grateful, people. Be grateful. So, Mr. Michael Wright, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
So if you go to dramwright.com, you'll find my books, you'll find the links to my podcast. Just be patient with those. I got to get them up there. My paperbacks are exclusively on Amazon. If you want to get them in ebook, there's a link up there that will take you to Barnes and Noble and things like that. Their ebooks are available everywhere.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Michael Wright because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering books like this to come, more and more empowering episodes of the podcast itself. So, Mr. Michael, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Welcome, people. See you soon.